Did it start yet? It says live.
It says public.
I think we're live now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the VCF Southwest live stream preview. So the show is still in the planning stages. They got a number of things scheduled. They're still working on speakers, but I'm Jeffrey Brace. I'm the showrunner for VCF East. But I thought this was a great idea to get some talking about the VCF Southwest, which is coming up on when? When is it coming, Jay?
June 14th through 16th.
And where will it take place?
At the University of Texas at Dallas.
All right. Same place as last year, right?
Correct.
All right. So that's great. So so Raymond, if you want, I can start with looking at the website here and going through the calendar. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. So we have Friday. Exhibitors are loading up. What is exhibitor social hour? That's just to hang out until the show.
Yeah. This is something that actually we saw at VCF SoCal, where they had a pre-show social hour, and so we're gonna have some time for the exhibitors to mingle and kind of check out everyone's exhibits before the public is let in, and I think it'll be a good time.
That's great. That's a good idea. I try to have that with the VCF East, like have a time where the exhibitors can mingle with each other before the public comes, because then it's harder to see their stuff and talk with each other. Show opens at noon. Looks like Osagi's doing a Hawk Drive restoration. That looks pretty cool. Is he going to do that in a separate room?
Yeah, so we've really expanded our footprint this year. We have a bunch of new rooms and additional exhibitor spaces. So we actually have 2 rooms now dedicated to workshop type educational rooms. Raymond, of course, will be running those rooms and assisting greatly with them. But we're going to have one room that is a very practical type space where we're going to teach classes on soldering and repair. Building kit computers, that kind of thing. And we'll have another room right next to it, which will teach PCB design and programming with BASIC and a lot of, kind of computer software type things. So the CDC Hawk Drive restoration will be happening in the workshop room, where we'll have soldering stations and, kind of the DIY build room. So to speak.
Yeah, you did something like that last year, right?
Not really, no. I mean, we had a room that dealt with soldering and kit building, but
we had the kits, the 8031 show kit, and then we had the pocket terminal kit from Vince Briel. So we had those 2 sessions going on.
Wait, there was one with repairing VIC-20s or something like that, wasn't there?
Right.
Yes, there was that one as well with 8-Bit Guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, and I forgot to introduce everyone. So Jay, why don't you, Jay Crudy, what is your role there? Just a volunteer, or what is your have any time?
Well, so for the show, I'll be running AV. So all of the speaker seminars and those kind of things, I'll be videotaping all of those.
Wonderful. And Raymond Jett?
Yes, sir. Auction coordinator. We've got David coming back in from American Amusement Auctions to help us with our fundraising auction. We've got several items that have been donated. We're about to take pictures this coming week and get them out on the site and start to build some interest in what we have coming. I'm also dealing with helping with marketing and the getting press releases out, see if we can get some uptake this year. We had difficulty with that last year in getting uptake from your standard press. So we're gonna try again this year, and I'll be working through that. And then, of course, working in the workshops and labs, as well as running my own table. I'm a platinum sponsor for our own show, Arcade Components.
Oh, wonderful. And Steven?
Alrighty, so I'm going to be running around the floor like a maniac trying to fight all the fires that are going on that people might be having. And so, amidst all that stuff, give me an excuse to take pictures and post things on social media as well. I'm trying to do all the outreach and evangelize all the cool things we've got going on at the show in the meantime while it's going on. So keeping the excitement, making the repertoire that we can use to get people excited for 2025 as well.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I've done that myself. I started out that way as a co-showrunner, running around putting out fires. All right. So what else we have on this calendar? We have history of the mini disc format. All right.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that. So
Sure.
one thing that's unique this year is we're going to have 2 mini shows within a show. So we were approached this past year by a group that specializes in mini disc technology, like reverse engineering, and they're kind of mini disc enthusiasts. And at first we were kind of like, this is a little, it's not quite computer centric, but we started talking to these guys and immediately realized, these guys are people like us. Mini disc is a little different, but there are kind of people. They're very passionate about that format, and it does have some relation to computer and storage technology as well. So they're going to have a room within the show focused on mini disc technology. They're also going to have some seminars. They've got people who've reversed engineer the formats, who are publishing specs. They got people who have written software so that you can actually create new mini discs and data discs and things like that. So we'll have a kind of show within a show for the mini disc format. We're also going to have a Tandy assembly meetup as well.
And Jay, for the folks out there listening, if you have a mini disc player or some mini disc technology, bring it and talk to those guys. They're going to have some free giveaways for those of you that have the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool. I know there was at VCF West, there was a guy named Foon Turing.
Mm-hmm.
He had every media type that ever, well, I don't know if ever existed, but such a variety, and included the mini disc. And that's what it reminded me. Not just like different floppy disks, but mini discs, this disc, that disc. And I guess that was a Sony format, right? I think it was a Sony format. So that's just like, it's probably one of those formats that like Sony had Betamax where it was like superior, but people, it didn't catch on or something like that. That's my guess.
Well, it's also very related to the general magneto-optical formats, that we had in the 90s and I guess late 80s as well. So yeah, there'll be a lot to learn about the mini disc format and also learn how that influenced storage formats for the computer world as well.
Wow, that's very cool. All right, let me go back to calendar. So that sounds pretty cool. Like there's all kinds of gems that you find that people come to you and you're like, what's that all about?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, it's more interesting than you would have thought. All right, so we have next here, Marketing and Revolution, the story behind Apple's iconic Super Bowl commercial. So who's that? And she's a marketing director at Apple?
Well, so that's a seminar. Ann Balsamo is the director of the Media Archaeology Lab at UT Dallas. She's actually been a partner in the show. She's helped us a lot with, securing facilities and sponsoring various things with the show. So she's been a great supporter and continues to be. So this session is where she has a connection with Henry Whitfield, who was a marketing director at Apple during the time of that 1984 Super Bowl ad.
Oh.
So they're going to have a seminar talking about, that ad and kind of, what was the impetus behind it and, the effects of it after the ad. So that'll be a very intriguing seminar, and she'll actually approach it from the standpoint of almost like an academic studying, how did this come to be? What was its effects? So not a very technical seminar, I imagine, but one that will look at a lot of art and talk about media influence and marketing.
Yeah, her group is one that helped us this last year with doing interviews of some of the presenters and trying to document, oral histories. And so this is just another thing to document something behind something very important in the computer industry.
Yeah, and her entire lab at UTD is vintage computers. I mean, that's how we actually connected with her. We were walking through the building and I stumbled upon a room that was filled with vintage Macs and other vintage machines. And I said, who is this woman? She's a bird of a feather. She's one of us. So we made contact with her. Her group uses vintage computers. They study media and creativity that resulted from vintage technology. They also do things like video preservation, film preservation. So they span a wide variety of different technologies, and they study how those technologies were used for creative and marketing impact, communication in general.
Wow, pretty cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think I remember that from last year. So it's something that I need to check out. I definitely want to go to that talk.
Yeah, and she'll also be hosting a reception for the show later that evening as well at 6 p.m.
That's wonderful.
Yep, one of our big spots is actually in the secondary building, the Arts and Technology Center, which is kind of across the alleyway from the Davidson Gundy, which is the primary exhibit hall. But that's kind of where the reception is. It's where she's got some of the media archaeology lab stuff set up of hers that she works on as well, and possibly some demos will be out there.
Yeah, she'll have exhibits of her own on display there.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Next one is porting OS 9 to the Phoenix 256. Now, that name seems familiar, and I know about the Phoenix 256.
Boise's huge in the Cocoa community.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Boise, big in the Tandy and Cocoa community. He's been working on porting this operating system over to this modern, Phoenix 256 system. So he's going to give a presentation on his experience and, the pitfalls and what he learned from that porting effort.
Yeah, that'll be a very interesting talk. A lot of people like that one. All right, and we have. Let me switch back again. So that's Friday. And we have Internet Before Its Time, the Naboo Network of Theo Bankowski. He just talked at East. He's a good speaker. Sees as a speaker. But Naboo is like really an interesting computer that a lot of people didn't know about until fairly recently, last few years.
Yeah, so I'll have my personal Naboo set up on display at the show, and Leo will be giving a talk. Largely talking about similar themes he's presented at East and elsewhere. But yeah, he's a really great person to learn about the Naboo system from, because he was so prolific as a developer for them. It knows the whole history of that Naboo PC effort.
Yeah, and he had released. I was just reviewing his talk from East, so I'll release that in a few weeks. And he talked about some things that he recovered. He recovered a lot of software from his hard drive. He'll talk about that too.
Yeah, and their efforts continue. I mean, they're still, he's got hundreds of disks of developer, source code and whatnot. So they're doing a lot of great work for the Naboo community to recover stuff that's, been lost to time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Glad that he's going to make it there, because I know sometimes it's hard to go to multiple shows.
His talk will be virtual.
Oh, it's virtual. Okay, there you go. That's what I figured as much. It was kind of hard. All right. Exhibits close at 5:45. Welcome reception. So is that for every? That's the welcome thing that you were talking about. Okay.
Right. So that's what's going to be cool about that reception, is that it'll be held in that ATC building next door. We're actually going to have a musical performance going on during the reception. We've got musicians here locally who compose and perform music using vintage computers. So they're going to actually, it'll be an actual live music show with music that is performed on vintage systems. So it's going to be quite the extravaganza to behold.
Oh, interesting. Like 8-bit chip tunes or something a little different?
A little bit of everything. I mean, these guys, I think it's actually 3 or 4 performers we have, but some of them are using actual hardware, whether it's Atari, Commodore, that kind of thing. I think some others may have some sampling stuff going on, but it's all vintage created music.
Very cool. All right, and that's Friday. So that's pretty good. It's a good start of Friday. Tektronix, yeah, because Tektronix is like, they do all kinds of scopes and things like that. It's interesting.
This was their terminal that had the storage scope.
Oh, so it's a terminal. Okay, I don't know much about that.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is a
so-
very, very large system. I think that CRT tube is like 21 or 23 inches or something like that. And as I recall, it has some kind of 4,000 by 3,000 type of dot display that it could do. And it could render a lot of CAD drawings. And you had this doing a lot of CAD, a lot of basic last year at the show. And it was very popular. And it drew quite a bit of intrigue. And so we're having him back again to explain the system and to really, be able to get out there and evangelize it and talk about it a lot more.
Wow, very nice.
Pretty, is ahead of his time in terms of CAD capabilities for that era.
Yeah, there's like a lot of computers that you didn't know about that had pretty awesome capabilities early on that you didn't even know about. For example, like the Quantel Paintbox. I had no idea that there was a computer like that that can do such crazy graphical stuff, and actually was done on music videos and things like that. But it was expensive, it was proprietary, but people didn't know about it because it was not like a consumer computer. So it's it's always interesting to see like things that were like, I had that capability in what year? So it's probably something similar.
Well, some of that also is because of the different price point, right? I mean, you look at like HP had these workstation systems for, scientific use that were incredibly powerful, had high resolution, dot pixel displays. I mean, but, that stuff was $25,000 back in 1980. So it was in a whole different tier that, we didn't know about. But of course, today that stuff is affordable for the vintage community.
Except those 9845s are pretty notorious for having difficult power supplies. In the middle of one of those now myself.
Introduction to digital electronics. That sounds pretty cool. So it's like a class to get people started. Maybe this is I guess like a beginner level. What kind of level?
Yeah, it assumes a beginner level, and this is really one thing we're trying to do to differentiate our shows from a lot of others out there, is that we think that vintage computing is not just about collecting. It's not just about admiring the old tech. I mean, people have a lot to contribute. I mean, perfect example is this year. I just for the first time bought a TRS-80 Model 4, and it's a wonderful machine that I only experienced once when I was growing up. But I came across this Model 4, and the keyboard didn't work. And I've never thought of myself as a big hardware designer, but I said, well, if I want to use this machine that I just bought, I'm going to have to find a keyboard solution. I did some research, and it turned out that restoring those keyboards is very time consuming and not at all fun. So rather than spend 5 hours restoring a keyboard that might last for another 10 years, I decided, hey, I'm going to build a modern vintage, or build a modern replacement keyboard for it. So this kind of ties into the philosophy of the show, which we think anyone has something to contribute to the community, whether it's designing a new piece of hardware, whether it's writing new software. Average people can contribute to vintage computing, and even modern computing for that matter. I mean, vintage computing is a great pathway to even learn about modern computing. So this seminar, the introduction to digital electronics, this is going to be, assuming beginner level knowledge, but we're going to step you through, hey, how would you design some simple circuits that can interface with a computer? And this will also tie into another seminar we're going to have on PCB design. So, if you wanted to figure out, hey, how might I, create some kind of peripheral, and what are the basic circuits I'm going to have to tie into and know about, it kind of, whets the appetite to at least get you started on a pathway to future learning. We want to break down the barriers of people thinking, well, I don't know enough, or, how can I contribute because I'm not an electronics engineer. Everyone's got something to contribute. So we're trying to, bring them into the community that way.
Yeah, that's great. That's something that we do a little bit of. We do like intro to soldering, but we just don't have enough space. It's nice that you have a few different rooms there where you can separate and have different classes and focus on the beginners, because that's something we've been lacking other than just basic soldering. And that's good, because not everybody that goes there is really that versed in hardware or software. Maybe they're versed in one thing or the other, or they're just people that have never done this before. Maybe younger people, kids. So that's a great thing. And looks like this guy. I heard about this guy. He started playing every single game chronologically. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, the project he's doing to play every single game. I mean, it's just really impressive, in eye-opening to see not only progression of vintage computer gaming, but so he's going to give a talk about his experiences and what he's learned so far going through this. And, I mean, I'm not sure it can ever be completed, but he's made a lot of progress, and it'll be a very interesting talk.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching every single TV show.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Every single game, very, very interesting. I love to see that one. That's fun. Thomas Cherry Holmes. Now he's in his backyard. He is. So I guess this is not talk about FujiNet, but just talking about how this is Atari coin-op development tools. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's really made some inroads with the Atari community. I mean, of course, at VCF SoCal, he did a presentation with Joe DeQueer. So it's going to be interesting talk where he's talking about some of the newer things he's learned from the Atari community and other developments like the coin-op machines as well.
Yeah, that'll also be very interesting.
It's very rare to get this kind of perspective, because usually when these kind of presentations are made, it's a lot of industry insiders and folks who actually did these things back in the 1980s that are starting to suffer from foggy memories, and they don't remember exactly the tools, and they can only pontificate on describing what they look like. They don't actually have them to show you. And so this is going to be a really exciting dive into what it was like to build these things in real life.
Yeah, so that's sort of the trend for us, is like, we interview these people that were there back then, but if they're either dying off or their memories are fading, and so you're going to people that weren't there, but they know how these things work, and they're doing new things with them. And so that's going to be the trend in the future, is that like all these people are going to be dead. Like, well, let's go with people that have worked with these things, have recreated things or made new things. And so it'll just keep the whole vintage community alive, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Thomas has done very important work recently. If you followed his YouTube channel, where he's actually trying to demonstrate how development was done back in the old days, right? I mean, he's got some videos recently where he's trying to show you, how would you actually have written a game and compiled it, and what was the actual process used back then? I mean, of course, today we can, write code in WYSIWYG editors and drop it into cross compilers. He's actually trying to create some content teaching what were the vintage ways that these problems were approached and solved.
Sit around and burn a ROM and wait for it and stress out about, did I make some little defect? I mean, I've been a professional software developer for 15 years, and I can't tell you how many times I will make little silly defects in my code, and it'll be like 5 times of fixing semicolons or dumb things before I get it right. And I just can't imagine these people who can just sit there and have the attention span to really get everything right the first try, because with burning ROMs, you're wasting a ton of time with these mistakes. And nowadays, I can just get it done in like 3 seconds a turn. It doesn't matter. But back then, it's so much time. Right?
Yeah.
Super pay attention.
We'll relive the pain that they lived.
Well, it also helps us to understand the limitations back then, right? I mean, it's easy today to armchair quarterback why, games and software has certain limitations, but, Thomas is trying to show us, like, this is the reality they lived in. So, it really gives you a fresh perspective on why certain things were done the way they were.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. That'll be a good talk too. All right. So let's look at the next one. We have machines from around the world, not like the others. Eastern Europe, British, Australian computers. Oh, that's always interesting. Just like computers that in the US we've never seen before.
Right. Yeah. Shane did a presentation last year on, Soviet type machines. So this year he's trying to branch out a little and present some other rare machines people may not be familiar with.
Shane's another person that's part of our show, and he does a lot of international travel. He's from Australia, so he's got a collection of machines that are very rarely seen on this side of the world.
Hmm. Yeah, that's always cool. It's not just like a different power plug to plug it into the wall. It's like completely different things. Like we had like some Dutch computers, Philips at our show, and we had some from Chile. Like they were clones of like Commodore 64 and all these other computers, and I'm like, what is that? And how
Oh
did they
yeah,
get away
the
with
South
it?
Americans were brilliant at copying things.
So, and it's always cool to see like stuff outside that you've never seen before, and maybe never would have unless someone brought it over.
I think anybody in that Comic-Con sphere was really good at copying. You see so many copies, like the Russians love theirs, ZX Spectrum clones and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see. How Shane has traveled. I've made a big acquisition of a particular Soviet machine a while back, and he actually reconnected with the guy who still had the discs for it that he couldn't ship off for some reason. He actually got them for me. So it was really cool. His travels have really been very helpful in getting this stuff kind of out and proliferated.
Oh, yeah, pretty cool. All right. So that's another one to look at. All right, let's go to the next one. And FujiNet, there we go. He's going to give an update on FujiNet. That's really cool. FujiNet is, at first, when I first heard about this, one of our members is like, oh, this FujiNet thing. And I'm like, why is he getting so excited about this thing? It's like, oh, now I see. Because like before, like in the Commodore 64, you had an Ethernet adapter, you had an SD card reader. But now you could put those two together into one thing. You can connect to the Wi-Fi, download some software, and run it on the computer. You don't need any floppy disks. You don't need any SD cards. You just download it from some server and it runs.
Well, also, I mean, not to steal Thomas's thunder too much, but I mean, FujiNet is also becoming the kind of one ring to rule them all, right? I mean, they're branched out into so many systems now where it's becoming a common network for all these vintage 8-bit machines.
Yes.
And he's been prolific in even, changing game code to incorporate things like networked high scores. So you can do, multiplayer gaming with games that were never even conceived of to have multiplayer. So FujiNet is becoming this
architectures too.
Yeah, it's becoming this common architecture to link everything together.
Yeah, that's amazing. It starts like, and even supporting abandoned orphan computers like the Coleco Atom.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing them out of like resurrecting them and like having people give a second look at it, because now it's not as hard to put software, get software, run them maybe on an emulator or in the real computer, because we have it on the real computer. But maybe some people actually make new software for it.
Yeah, Coleco Atom wasn't the easiest one to get software onto.
Yes.
Yeah, you might wipe it out before it's even loaded.
Yeah.
And so about the Coleco Atom, it's a funny thing when you bring that to a show. So many people overlook it just because it's got the sleep timer. It'll turn the screen off after a few minutes, and people just think it's dead or whatever, and they don't even touch it. And so that ends up kind of limiting people's imaginations of it at a show. You really have to babysit those things, make sure people understand, hey, this is working.
Yeah, I've seen that with other computers that we have. We have to try to turn off the sleep timer, like the AT&T 3B2. There's some Silicon graphics machine. It's like you gotta every once in a while hit it or try to turn off the timer so that people know that you can play with this.
Yeah, Homer Simpson, the little bird back in the keyboard.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. Let's go to the next thing here. Hardware is Hard by David Park. The difficulty of making new hardware. Oh, so yeah, so that's sort of like in that same realm of FujiNet type of thing. We're making new stuff for it.
Right. So yeah,
That's
so
a huge marketplace that has popped up, and it's only gotten bigger over the past 10 years of the different new things that you could buy for these old machines that give you some really cool capabilities. You know, and I've made use of a few of them, like the Tape Duino, to take software you download offline, put it on it, plug it into the cassette interface, and boom, you load your software.
Yeah, it extends the life of these machines. Not that it needs it, but it makes it more fun, I think, to not have to worry about like mechanical things like the floppy drive or something like that breaking.
Yeah, and the tape decks where all your belts are melting, and the little Capistan pinch roller is turning to goo or getting hard as a rock, and it eats tapes.
Your
This
tape is turning
kind of
into dust anyway.
stupid proof way of getting software onto a computer.
Yeah, so that sounds like industry. Like there's a lot of good talks going on here. Let's go to the next one. Mastering PCB designs. We had mentioned that before, so that's like a beginner workshop for creating that. It's looks like a pretty cool idea there. And then basic, past, present, and future.
right. So Corey is a Microsoft certified teacher of this type of subject, principally with VB and other Microsoft centric languages. But he's going to do an overview of the basic programming language, where it came from, what are its various flavors over the years, and where we're at today, and try to give people a good overview of how it evolved over time, and what are its strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, there's all kinds of flavors of basic and variants, and we run into that into the museum where we're like, you hear people coming in, and it's like, here's a card, type up, find a computer that has basic with a tab and type it in, but oh well, the Apple one, you have to have an end statement on it. It's like, oh, I guess in maybe in the beginning when they conceived basic, it actually had to have an end statement, but most other ones after that doesn't require end statements. And is it a colon, is it semicolon, is it does it have a dollar sign? There's lots of different variants depending on some of it's like the hardware limitations, and sometimes it's just the software of how they designed it.
How do you clear the screen on some of them? CLS
Yeah,
doesn't exist in basic 52.
yes.
Yeah, and Corey's, so this is a kind of a historical overview talk, but on Sunday, Corey will actually be teaching a practical workshop on basic programming. So you can kind of, in this talk on Saturday, you can kind of learn what BASIC's all about, how it got to where it is. But then on Sunday, he'll have a follow-up session where he's actually going to teach people how to program using QBasic.
Oh, that's good.
Basics turned 60 this year, so this is an important milestone.
Oh, it is, really. Oh yeah,
and it was important to get all of the systems the same too, as we describe these basic variants.
Yeah, who could be fluent in all dialects of BASIC?
I'll have my Sim 1 on display with BASIC running.
Very cool, very cool. All right, so we have that. New value and old data. Oh yes, is this like data recovery? Is that what this is about?
Yeah, so Charles is an expert in recovering data from especially old magnetic media. So he'll give a presentation very science-centric, talking about how do we recover, and how was information stored to begin with, and how do we have to approach recovery today.
Chuck is an expert in just all kinds of storage media. He's given presentations for IEEE members about how solid-state hard drives work, and goes all to the low-level kind of like quantum theory and theories of electrons and how they travel through these things. And so he gets, it's like incredibly sciencey. And, it's relevant to the manufacturing processes of these, which also becomes relevant to the restoration of these things.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Any restoration type thing is going to be interesting to talk about. All right, so we do have some people in the chat that talking, so that's good that we got people going here. All right, so next thing up is the streamer panel. LGR, pretty cool. Adrian Black, yeah. Thomas Cherry Holmes, oh, Macintosh Librarian, very cool. Usagi, Action Retro, 8-Bit Guy, of course, he has to go there because it's in his backyard. In June Tate, very cool. Very good. Very nice. It's always a fun thing to do is those streamer panels. And then awards and auction. You did the auction last year.
We did awards last year before the auction as well. And we're going to have a combination of serious ones and joke awards.
Yep. Yeah, the serious awards are predetermined in advance. They'll have some sort of real live, nice plaque to go along with it. And then the joke awards we've brainstormed some ideas about these. We'll probably actually make a determination as to which one we use during the show, given what people bring, and see who brought something that inspires a joke among us. And then we'll hand them some kind of silly thing that we just kind of make on the fly.
Yeah, they do that at VCF West. I don't think we never did it at East. I guess people didn't like that aspect, but it really caught on, and sometimes we would give out as the award as the 8-inch floppy with different decorations and who had the heaviest computer, who had the
who had the best campfire going.
Yes,
the most reefas blown.
So that's a good idea. I like that. It's a very good idea. And so yeah, the auction was a really could be very popular thing too.
Yeah, I'd love to mention too. I mean, as producers of the show, we have a nonprofit, a 501c3 recognized nonprofit, and part of our mission is to get these vintage machines, restored, get them into the hands of collectors. And we also have an educational mission, which ties into our workshops and presentations during the show. But we also want to reinvest in the community. So we do student scholarships, and all of the money we raise from producing the show gets invested in these student scholarships. So the auction is part of that effort to really, generate funds that we can support the next generation of students that will, invent stuff for the computing world.
Sometimes the university likes to call these awards rather than scholarships, but that's just very technical.
Yeah, scholarships might be better for PR.
Yeah.
Say, oh, these are scholarships. That's a very good idea.
Yeah. So that's part of our nonprofit mission, and and that manifests in a lot of different ways. I mean, the auction is one manifestation. We're also doing things right now to outreach to our local, DFW area to try to get people to donate machines to us. So just today, we received a donation of some computer equipment that will, Raymond and others will restore it, get it back to fully working operation. And then we can auction it to get it back into the loving hands of a collector or user that will, see the machine live on. And we're also working with electronic recyclers to try to divert machines. We don't want stuff going to the landfill. And unfortunately, electronic recyclers tend to get a lot of vintage equipment, and they just junk it because they don't even know what it is. I mean, we toured a local electronics recycler recently, and I showed them a picture of an Amiga 500. He said, "Oh yeah, well, every now and then we see those, but we think they're just weird keyboards, but they obviously don't work as keyboards, so we just send them to e-waste." So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to, work with these people and divert some of these things to keep them out of the landfills.
That's good, because different places and different states have different ways of dealing with recycling. Because there'll be people that will try to take that stuff, but people say, no, you can't take the stuff. Once it's there, it's there. But why not? Why not let people take it if they want to use it or even sell it? At least it's not going into the landfill, right?
Yeah, you need amount of paperwork to go through to be able to do that.
That's what we're learning. Yeah.
And we've had a concerted effort to reach out to some of the small scrappers, the people that come up with these machines from crazy places, but what they want to do is they want to recover the gold and just educate them on, hey, this stuff that you got is worth a whole lot more than just gold scrap. Work with us. We'll help you assess some values on it that will help you move it as fast as you want, to flip it and get your money, but get you a whole lot more than what you would for spending the time to break it down and try to get gold out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so true. I guess that's the key, is educating people. All right, let's so that's Saturday. So far it's like really a lot of great stuff there. Sunday, build chip tiny single board computer workshop with Vince Brielle. So he seems like he's a familiar name.
Mm-hmm.
Vince has built a lot of kits over the years for the community.
Yeah. What kind of kits has he built in the past?
Apple One and a Kim One kit using newer components, so the smaller boards.
Yeah,
I think he's even done Altairs, right?
Yeah, and that too. The Altairs. I've got a pocket terminal here that he did last year.
Oh, nice.
Uses the propeller chip.
I think we have one of his. It's the Apple One replica is called Mimeo, I think, and we have one of those. That's pretty.
Now the Mimeos I thought was the full size Apple One, the original.
Yes, yeah, it is. Didn't he do that one?
He did the smaller one.
Oh, it did smaller. Okay, I see.
Yeah, but he's been prolific, and we're very happy that he's in our backyard, and continues to innovate and work with us on the show. So he'll be presenting that workshop, and he'll have a booth exhibiting some of his previous designs as well.
Yeah, we were lucky that he moved to our area a few years back.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, he was really surprised at the response to his booth, I think, and kind of almost got him out of retirement or something along those lines.
Yes, he was really excited about that.
Yeah, so it's nice when you can make some of these guys happy. Like we had Ted Nelson come to our show a few years ago, and he's like, he didn't think that people still were interested in his stuff. So it was nice to him to see people showing such interest and asking questions. So it's always a good thing to do stuff like that. All right, so VCF Showrunners panel, what's that about?
Well, as you know, Jeff, we're one of the new guys on the block, and the experiences that I think every showrunner for a VCF show goes through. We've learned a lot. This will be our second show this year. There's various other shows that have started up, like VCF SoCal just happened earlier this year. So we're going to present a showrunner panel to kind of, teach people what does it take to put on one of these shows. I mean, we've had people reach out to us saying, hey, I'd love to produce my own show in Denver, or, why don't you have a show in, Minnesota or something? People send us questions, and just like when I originally reached out to you 2 years ago, saying, well, hey, what do we do here? How's this work? So we want to kind of put on a panel to teach people not only what it takes to produce these shows, but also, what is it like? The funny thing is, I now have produced a VCF, and until I went to VCF SoCal earlier this year, I had never attended one. I don't even know what my own show was like, right? I was running a camera and video switcher. I didn't get to see hardly any exhibits. So we want to give people kind of an unvarnished view of, what is it like to produce these, and what does it take, and maybe give people a little bit of a leg up to show you can do it. You can produce your own show, but here's all the things you're going to have to think about and have a solution to.
Yeah, it was inspiring to see how the SoCal people were so interested in taking the successes of our show and really making their own happen. And
they asked a lot of questions last year during the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And this could be bootstrapping a whole bunch of other ones too that could be really great for us to attend.
Yeah, because we've also had people ask about different locations for starting up VCFs, and with various levels of experience, and some of them just need to do grassroots efforts to build up a community and volunteers to get it going. You guys had the benefit of us already having a lot of it together, so you were able to get it together very quickly. So
we had the show fizzled out over a decade ago here, but with 3 years of closing out and cleaning out Computer Reset, plus the explosive growth of our own retro community here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, separate from that, we felt it was ripe to bring it back.
Yeah.
It feels like to me, CR really kickstarted the local renaissance of retro computing.
Yeah. And that happens too. And it's just amazing that there's still a lot of and growing interest in vintage computers. It's something that you wouldn't think. You would think it would die down after a while, but it's still going. It's increasing. People are making new stuff. People are doing things in different ways. So it's actually increasing, believe it or not. That it just amazes me.
And it seems to me that Gen Z is embracing the old things. They like kind of old-fashioned technology, old-fashioned fashion, stuff that doesn't necessarily reek of newness. It's just, let's experience what this used to be like. And so I think that we're going to see some really interesting modern hardware for retro systems come from these new generations.
Yeah, our Gen Xers are just rabidly collecting the stuff we couldn't afford as kids.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that showrunner panel is going to be great because, of course, we're going to have you, Jeff. We're going to have some folks from VCF Midwest. We're going to have some folks from VCF Southeast in Atlanta, and we may have a few others as well. So it'll be an interesting introduction to, what does it take to really put these things on behind the scenes.
Oh, good. All right, let's look at the next thing. Show calendar again. Starting a museum with John Hardy. So, National Video Game Museum.
Yeah, so there's two talks that John's going to be doing, and this one is basically how he started the museum. That was one of the questions that I posed to him, was that, hey, if somebody wanted to start one, how would they get it done? I know collectors that have huge bits of their own collection that they would love to see in a museum someday, but there's not much in the way of a computing museum in this part of America. I mean, we've got the Computer History Museum on the West Coast, we got stuff on the East Coast, but there's like a huge dearth of stuff down the center. So how would we put something together and kick it off? How did you do it? And so he's going to talk about how he and his friends put together the National Video Game Museum and launched it.
Yeah, and I should also say, too, I mean, National Video Game Museum, our show would not exist if it wasn't for John Hardy and his museum. I mean, they bootstrapped us with seed funding to get VCF Southwest off the ground. John Hardy's been a huge supporter of ours throughout all of it and continues to be. And, we should also mention, too, running a successful museum is hard. I mean, we've unfortunately seen quite a few vintage computer type museums go under in the last few years. So it's not as simple as it sounds. And the fact that the National Video Game Museum, the fact that they have thrived is really a testament to the professionalism and knowledge that John Hardy has with his team. So that'll be a great talk because, let's say you've got a critical mass of people who want to start a museum, it takes more than just enthusiasm to keep the lights on and the doors open, right? So he can hopefully help some people who may be thinking about starting their own museum up.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
You got to be part P.T. Barnum and be able to cajole the money out, get the funding going behind the scenes. That's a big part of it too.
Oh yeah, I'd be interested in that because we have our museum and we're in between stages, and funding is definitely one of the biggest things to go to the next level, to be able to renovate a space and maybe even possibly be on our own separate. We're part of a larger museum space, InfoAge, so right now we're able to function without much fear of folding up, because it's like 18 different museums all together, and so it'll be interesting to see how they did it. I'm always curious about how museums get successful museums get going, like that one or CHM, for example.
Yeah, museums are really going to be a key to, maintaining this legacy for future generations as well. So, if you think of places like System Source and Computer History Museum and Info Age, I mean, all of us are part of this fabric of community that's going to carry this knowledge forward. So, making sure museums can survive is an important topic.
And we talked about the hands-on quick basic and domesticating the computer.
Right. So this, I think, will be a broad overview talk. Just kind of maybe there's some folks who don't realize what the variety of systems that were out there. And, like myself, I was always a Commodore guy growing up. And, I had seen Tandy TRS-80 machine once growing up. I never even knew that Atari made computer machines. So some people kind of get in our own, communities and we never branch out. So hopefully this will expose some folks to other machines and, hardwares as well.
So in particular, I've had a chance to preview his slides. And one of the big talking points is what really is the first personal computer? And he tries to not be prescriptive in that definition, but really inspire more of a discussion about, hey, this one actually has logic that'll fit on your desk. This one's actually affordable to an individual. And, what are these components of it that each come from different systems, like the DataPoint 2200 or the HP 9830 or something along those lines, until you get to the Holy Trinity and then finally the IBM stuff, and then even later on than that. So, what are some of these systems that define pivotal moments in computing that really lead to the things we have on our desks and in our hands?
Yeah, that's always there was always my predecessor always talked about F, meaning first, is a bad word, because what do you mean by first? And sometimes it has to be very specific. Like the ENIAC was the first fully electronic, digital, programmable, computer. So you have to have all of those qualifiers. Otherwise, it wasn't the first computer, because they were mechanical. There was other different things. Yeah. So that's where first becomes it has to be very specific, because what is first? Everyone's going to say this was first, that was first. Like some people have completely wrong ideas, completely wrong. Like the Apple I was the first personal computer. Like, no, there were things before that. So
there are claims for things like, the TRS-80 Model 1 being the first mass available non-kit built computer you walk into a store, buy, and take home.
Yeah, and that's a whole different debate. The Trinity, which came first, the Apple II, the Commodore PET, or the TRS-80 Model 1? Which came first? Well, it doesn't matter. They come out about the same time, and the important thing is that there were consumer computers, whereas before they were kits. Yeah.
So they were either industrial for the businesses, or they were kits that you had to assemble.
Yes.
And even thinking about the early CPUs too, like the 4004 and the other two that came out pretty much along the same time, and which ones were more commercially available, and all these different idiosyncrasies among them too.
Yes.
Yeah, and you also have to deprogram the masses who think, the IBM PC was the first PC. The marketing has infected our brains a little bit too much.
Yep.
Yes. That's why come visit our museum, Vintage Computer Federation Museum. I'll tell you all about it. I'll have all the computers here. It's like 1981, the IBM PC. But, well, you know what? They just saw that 4 years before that the other three companies there had it, and there was other in between, like, doing stuff. They're like, oh, we got to get into the race now. So that'll be good. So next on the calendar, archiving and preservation. That's definitely a big topic. People try to save things, recover things, like they find stuff or they have their own stuff, how to get that archived, how to preserve things.
Yeah, and that's another topic I talked with John at length about. He's got a few different tools that he uses to copy cartridges down, get the ROMs saved, and to go through and try to archive all the different discs that come through. and there's so many different formats for so many different machines. It's difficult. And you have some machines that you never even thought about having a floppy for, like some of the Nintendo games. And you got to be able to save all of that stuff off. And then you have all the documentation that comes with all of it, and it's all turning yellow and brittle with age from the acids in the paper. So how do you stabilize this? How do you keep your discs from further deteriorating if you can? And then how do you store them best to help save them? Same thing with the documentation.
And how do you do it in a way that doesn't infringe on copyrights? Because so maybe there's still some copyrights, but is there a way to preserve it too? So there's a lot of discussions around this idea too.
And you do have companies that still rabidly enforce copyrights, like Sega and Nintendo.
Yes, there was a Commodore 64 version of Super Mario Brothers, and even though they're not really going to hurt them or lose any money on it, they said cease and desist, stop distributing this, even though people weren't even selling it. So yes, some of them are very strong about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the next topic here. History of PERCOM data, Garland, Texas. Oh, so that's a local company then.
Yeah. PERCOM was a local firm. They did a lot of accessories and especially disk storage, type peripherals. Roger Eric is well known in the community. He's a colorful character, and he worked there very young and kind of saw the whole evolution of the company. So he'll give a presentation talking about, PERCOM may not have been a big player itself, but they kind of touched all these different types of systems. So, he'll give a history of not only PERCOM, but how those technologies were, influential throughout the industry.
And it's interesting to see how they connected some of this stuff too. They had disk drives for the Ataris, disk drives for the TRS-80s, and I've got a 10 meg hard drive here that has a SASE interface that comes with two interface cards, one for a TRS, a Tandy Model 1000 and above, and another one for the Apple II. So it's going to go in my Apple II Plus.
Yeah, and Roger's also kind of an expert on, what was development like back then from a hardware manufacturer's standpoint. I mean, what did they have to go through to create peripherals and add-ons for these various systems? And, how would they have figured out schematics and reverse engineered stuff? I mean, so he'll have some very interesting stories to talk about there.
Oh yeah, and I love this is like, who's ever heard of this place? But they actually had some significant things that they did there. It's always good to have talks like that.
And we're going to have a lot more too. I mean, I mentioned this to you that, we're still filling out the schedule. This is by no means complete. We're going to have quite a few more talks that are going in here. So this is just a preview, and, hopefully we'll have a follow-up live stream as well to talk about it. But yeah, we're going to have a really compelling amount of content, both talks and workshops and whatnot.
So why don't you bring up the map right now, which shows how you've grown since last year's show, and where you're going to put different things, and that I'd like to know. And I think everyone want to seize that.
Sure. So if you came to last year's show, you would know that we were pretty much just inside of this building here on the UTD campus. This is the Davidson Gundy Alumni Center. So we have the main ballroom exhibit space. We had a couple of rooms for presentation and talks, and we had a room for workshops. So this was the extent of the show. It was still great, went really well, but this year we've been able to dramatically expand what we're offering. So this year, not only do we have the Davidson Gundy Center, we also have expanded into the ATC building next door, where we're going to have a lot of Tandy, especially themed exhibits. In fact, this is going to be an official Tandy assembly meetup, they call it. So a lot of exhibitors that will be specific to Tandy. And all of our talks have also moved into the building across the street. So we'll have some lecture rooms here where We'll have, like, say, the live streamer YouTuber panel will be in here. We'll have various talks in these rooms as well. And our workshops and programming seminars will be in the same building in these 2 rooms over here. So we're really expanding our footprint. I mean, it's good to be successful, and we certainly were with last year's show. And UTD has been a very welcoming host and working with us to expand the footprint of the show. So we're looking forward to a lot of extra elbow room here. And I'll also show you, we have an interactive map that you can see the exhibitors on. So, so here in the Davidson Gundy Center, you know, you can see the actual exhibitors. Click on individual tables and it'll tell you who's in that spot. So we'll have a lot of them in the same exhibit space. The rooms we were using for talks and workshops, we'll have more exhibits going on there. You can see the Minidisc con will be in one of the rooms there. FujiNet, you know, all of these different exhibitors will be set up in there. And across the street, just 30-second walk away, will be the Tandy assembly area, although we do have some non-Tandy booths in here as well. So, for instance, the Vintage Computer Federation, Jeff, that'll be you.
Oh, that'll be me.
Yeah. So we're going to have a lot of great exhibits and booths here. Also, the Media Archaeology Lab with Dr. Ann Balsamo, they're going to have some exhibits in this space up here as well. So a lot of great new stuff that's coming. We've basically doubled our footprint. And then across the street, as I said, we'll have the presentations going on in various rooms down here and the workshops on the other side of the building as well.
You could still have the food trucks there. That was always
Definitely. Yes, yeah, you can catch that right there. So yeah, we'll have a great selection of food trucks. You know, everyone loved the food truck experience last year. We're going to have some new vendors this year as well. So we'll have plenty of food and drink options right here, right out in front of the festival.
And parking is in, we have a different parking.
Yeah.
It was
So most of the parking will be in this parking structure right here. The parking is free. You know, we did have some snafus last year where some student police parking enforcers didn't get the memo, but all the parking will be in this structure here. We do have an overflow lot, which is lot C and D, kind of off the map here. But for those bringing trailers or large vehicles, we'll have that lot available as well. So plenty of really accessible close parking, both handicap and standard parking.
Hey, Jay, while you got that map up, if you could drag it down just a little bit, let's talk a moment for, no, the other direction.
Oh.
Talk a moment for the added in extra, the different load ins.
Sure. So yeah, most of the load in area will be right here. This will be very convenient and was the place where we did load in, load out last year. So this will work for both the Tandy assembly, you know, expanded area as well as the main hall. We'll also have a lot up here that will be overflow. So if traffic gets too bad, we'll have the ability to offload vendors right here and wheel their wares into the exhibit hall.
And that'll be helpful for folks that are driving the large trucks or bringing large trailers, because down that side street where we did the unloading last year, it's a bit difficult to turn around a large truck or a trailer.
Right. So we'll have plenty of options there this year. And, you know, we will have staff helping to load and unload as well. So we're going to try and make it as easy on everyone as possible.
That's great. So then people can get tickets from your websites there. Again, it's June 12th through 14th.
14th through 16th.
14th through 16th? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and to give you some perspective, you know, here's the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. There are two major airports that service the Dallas-Fort Worth area, one being Dallas-Fort Worth International, which basically has every airline in existence. There's also Dallas Love Field, which is a major Southwest Airlines hub. So both of them are about 30 minutes away from the University of Texas at Dallas, where the show is right here.
So a short drive or Uber drive from there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's public transit, there's Uber, there's taxis, there's we're even going to pick up a few folks from the airport ourselves. So it's a very easy task to get to the venue, and there's plenty of hotels in the vicinity of the university as well.
Also, there will be a shuttle going from the event center up to the National Video Game Museum.
Ooh,
right. So the National Video Game Museum is in a town called Frisco, right up here. So it's about a short 20-25 minute drive, but that'll be a great attraction for people to check out. And for visitors who are not familiar with the Dallas-Fort Worth area, on our website for the VCF Southwest show, we have actually a DFW visitors guide. So we know that a lot of people will be attending with families and want to check out the attractions of the area. So our visitor guide will tell you about what are the kind of things you would want to check out if you're in the area for the first time. So
the restaurants are our personal favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. That was. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I think I heard that Dallas-Fort Worth has the largest number of restaurants per capita of any metropolitan area. So there's no shortage of food and drink establishments. This is just kind of a curated list, but there are plenty more to go, and it'll be a great experience for all involved.
So the tickets are unlimited tickets, so you can
That's right.
10,000 people there, and the hotels. Was there a hotel thing that was at the ended a hotel block that ended already?
No, there is still some rooms available with the hotel block. These are two hotels that are closest, but there are several in the 5 to 10 minute vicinity of the venue.
Good. In case you get these quickly, but if you don't, then there's still some good options. Then that's
I mean,
folks should have no trouble finding
block left.
Folks should have no trouble finding a hotel in their preferred points collection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean the DoubleTree by Hilton, that one is, dare I say, walkable to the venue, maybe about 10-15 minute walk. The Spring Hills also
you're resilient to June heat in Texas.
Yes, it will be hot for sure. And so there are plenty of accommodations in the local area. There's major highways right next to the venue as well. So this President George Bush Tollway Turnpike, it's a major highway. You also have US 75 nearby as well. So no problems with transportation getting back and forth.
So there's no excuse if you're within 10 hours driving from there. There's no excuse.
Yes, we have plenty of interstates linking, I-20, I-30, I-35. I mean,
281 from the Texas Panhandle.
Right. And, another thing, too, is we wanted to have the show here in the Dallas area because, there's a lot of states in the immediate vicinity that really don't have large vintage computing communities, or they don't have access to these kind of events. So, I mean, we really want our show to be a destination, folks from New Mexico, Oklahoma. I mean, I'm originally from New Orleans. I would have loved to have had this kind of show when I was growing up. So we want to serve this whole, central southern region of the country.
It's a thriving community here of retro enthusiasts with all the historical companies that have been here since the early days of computing, and not only that too, but then it's very travelable too because of the large airport we have here, the hub for American, hub for Southwest, and other airlines that serve these two airports.
Yeah. There was someone a while back who said, any shows about near Arkansas? But then when you guys came out, it's like, now there is. So I dug up that email from a year or two. Yeah. Now there is. Come to the show.
Yeah, Little Rock's like a 5-hour drive. It's pretty close.
No excuse. No excuses. Get to the show. So that's really good. So you got a lot of stuff going here. It sounds like a lot of exciting, and you guys are getting the show together with volunteers and organizing. Really, really wonderful. Anything else that people should know about before we wrap up this live stream here?
Well, I mean, I think you mentioned it. I mean, volunteers, we could always use more volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, we have a link to sign up on our website. As I said, we're still adding speakers and workshops. So if you would like to present a topic of interest to you, let us know. We'd love to get you on the calendar. And, even if you're a new presenter or haven't, really talked about a particular topic, everyone's got something to contribute to this hobby and community. So we'd love to hear from anyone who has an interest in, presenting some kind of topic of interest to them.
And if you want to create PowerPoint slides or Google Doc slides, we have plenty of experience. I've got 20 years working for Cisco. I can help folks with creating their content and going through and doing content reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we still plan to do oral history interviews as well. So we're going to have, several celebrities and notable guests in the history of computing at the show. So we'll do oral history interviews and try to produce content and, preserve these stories for future generations.
That's wonderful.
Some various Tandy engineers around to sign your Tandies, for instance.
Oh, yes. We will have hardware designer panel with Tandy and other system engineers on hand as well.
I mean, that's one thing people are always critical about East is that there's too many Commodore people. Well, Commodore was in Pennsylvania, so we're going to get a lot of Commodores because they could drive here and because they still tend to be in the area. So you're going to have a lot of Tandy people because why? Tandy was there, and then people tend to stay where they lived and worked for a while, and so that's okay.
Yeah, we are going to have a special. I won't spoil it, but we are going to have the unveiling of a special Tandy-centric project that, for those of you who are from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you will be familiar with it, and we're going to have a special unveiling of a new project from Tandy alumni engineers.
Wow.
We've had some great success in talking with folks that have been behind the scenes in this area, with one notable exception. The TI engineers just don't want to talk.
Yes. If you are affiliated with Texas Instruments, the history of personal computing there, we would love to hear from you. And unfortunately, we've learned that a lot of that effort was run out of their Lubbock location, both manufacturing and product support, product management. So we would love to have Texas Instruments more involved in the show. So if you're a TI alum of some kind, reach out to us. We'd love to involve you in the show.
All right. Sounds like an exciting show. So we'll definitely should do another preview once you get more information. So we'll have one at a future date, and I'll do it on our channel. So well, thank you guys for the update. This is going to be really exciting. I was there last year. It was your first show. I was glad I could be there. And now we'll have a table there and actually give a talk. And a lot of great stuff. You guys are doing a great job there with organizing this and getting all these speakers and great exhibits. It's really going to be a fun show there. Also.
Yeah, and thank you, Jeff. I mean, all the support you've given us over the years, and the Vintage Computer Federation, everything you'll do for the community. We really appreciate your support over this time.
Wow, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Any last words, Raymond?
No, well, just to thank John Hardy for kicking us off last year and getting us started. that was just huge for us.
Yeah, that's good. And any last words, Stephen?
We're blessed to have such a thriving community around here, and we can't wait to share it with the nation, the world, who wishes to come and visit us in our corner of the hot summer in Texas.
Yeah, it's going to be only 90 degrees this year, right? Not 105.
Fingers crossed, right?
105.
Yeah,
So,
fingers crossed the food truck guys were kind of sweaty miserable.
maybe since I'll be there, so when I get involved with shows, then the weather's good. So I was just attending last year, so it was only it was 105. So maybe if I'm there, it'll be just 95, just 95.
Yeah, we're gonna hold you to that.
All right, Jay and Raymond and Stephen, thank you. I'm gonna wrap up this live stream in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending stream, and we're off. We're off.
Thank you for your time, sir.